your martial arts movie podcast.
I threw that shit before I walked in the room.
Featuring drunken Thai boxer Will.
Too bad you will die.
The also drunken wrestler Mark.
I said I don't want trouble.
And drunken karate master Zero.
You've lost your balls.
And now,
Talk. I know Kung Fu.
You know, baby.
Fists of Fail. Zero, you remember how much I don't like superhero movies?
I do.
Yeah. Wow.
And we're reviewing one today.
And we're reviewing one today. Why is that? Why are we reviewing Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings? Not just because it's a new movie and the algorithms favor something like that. But no, it's a martial arts movie. Yay!
Yep. It is a Marvel martial arts movie, something that I didn't think would happen. I didn't even realize that Shang-Chi was a Marvel character or a character in general. So the fact that we're getting one is kind of interesting. You know, after all these years of Marvel movies, mainly white men.
And Black Panther, that's it.
And Black Panther, yeah. It's cool. It's cool that they're diversifying. I get it. They can't do it right away. Mm-hmm. I'm perfectly understanding of that. So we're in phase 12, phase 4, phase 6. Now, you know, they're finally catering to us Asians.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a rough statement for me to have to work with because I'm all for representation, obviously, right? Especially, I mean, if you guys are watching, you can tell that the two of us would love some more Asian representation in Hollywood films. But I'm not a fan of superhero movies, especially not after the glut of superhero movies that we had prior to COVID. I mean, COVID obviously slowed things down. They filmed this movie during COVID, so I mean that kind of explains why it's finally coming out now. But yeah, I haven't seen a superhero movie since Doctor Strange, and that's because I was already feeling the superhero fatigue at the time. And I want to.
You don't have to watch them.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, and I don't watch those movies. I almost refuse to watch any Marvel or DC movie because they're just, generally speaking, they're very safe films. They're not bad films. I don't think of any of these movies are bad, with a few exceptions. They're generally pretty milquetoast experiences. They're like, oh, that was a good movie, but it literally felt like a template.
Yeah, they're good for the summer blockbuster. It makes sense. They, like you said, they are down the middle, kind of safe, but it entertains the masses. I'm fine with that. But I have a similar sentiment where I have been feeling superhero fatigue for quite a while. Mm-hmm. But I still watch the movies because they are kind of safe, and at least when I go and watching it, I'm not expecting that my time has been completely wasted.
Well, that's where our opinions differ. I feel like it has been wasted because I'm not a superhero person. Sorry. I feel like it has been wasted because I don't find these movies engaging anymore, especially since they do feel very much like they're following a template approach. I mean, it works fine once, and then after a certain point, it feels like almost the same movie in terms of some of the way that these things are written. And you can definitely listen to other video essays, other people talk about how much people don't like the problems with these current superhero movies. That's not what I want to do. I think though those people do it much better, and they do it, explain in much deeper depth and dive into it more. But the reason why I think we should talk about today's movie is because it's marketed as a strictly or primarily a martial arts movie or a movie for the fans, right? And I don't know. I feel like it has just the right amount of martial arts that would qualify. But I mean, you remember The Winter Soldier, right? I think some of the fight choreography in that was better than this. Right? Do you remember that particular fight between Bucky and...
You're thinking of one particular fight compared to the large list of fight scenes that
That
I
is
gave
true.
you. This movie, if you're gonna say that this movie is not a martial arts movie,
Oh, I'm not saying that.
compared
Sorry.
on the amount of fighting there is, then I don't know what a martial arts movie
Okay,
is.
okay.
'Cause there's a lot of fighting.
There is. Okay, let me backpedal because I don't think I meant to say that this is not a martial arts movie. It is. It definitely is. But compare, like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's the first superhero movie that uses martial arts, or could be borderline martial arts, right? Because the previous movies in the MCU have used a lot of martial arts, especially in any movie with Captain America.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you kind of have to whenever there's grounded fighting.
Yeah.
But those, I feel the majority of the Marvel movies are action films with
right.
some fight scenes in it. This is a martial arts movie that happens to have that Marvel action spectacle in the end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with that said, there is a lot of fighting, and I still think that yes, this is a martial arts film. But in terms of like the quality of the martial arts, it's just like, I wouldn't say it's like the first like strictly martial arts movie in the Marvel universe, especially since it's been a while since I watched a Marvel movie, and I still consider some of the earlier films like borderline martial arts movies, because especially with the ones that are the more grounded superheroes like Captain America. Or even, I wouldn't call it, maybe Black Panther, maybe, I don't know, because there's not many supernatural elements in that movie either. Anyways, I'm getting a little off topic. We'll talk about Shang-Chi. The movie's pretty good. I mean, like I said, like at the worst, the movies can usually be just mediocre. They're not specifically, this movie's not specifically bad in any particular way. I just think the script itself is just okay, I guess. It can be kind of cheesy at times because it's following the comic book formula. But yeah, I think the movie's just pretty safe all in all. Zero. I don't know if you agree.
I actually liked this movie. I liked it not for being a superhero movie, and surprisingly, not because of the action. I quite enjoyed the family drama stuff going on. I thought that was much more interesting for me. And as a martial arts fan, the fact that they had, I guess, higher quality Hollywood action wasn't just like an additional selling point for me.
So the Hollywood action is actually a selling point for you then? Because you mean the actual choreography, or you mean all the particular things that make it a very Marvel style action film?
Well, I think in terms of the fights and the action, this is better from what I've seen in Hollywood. Not the best. I'm not saying it's the best, and then obviously other actors and stunt choreographers and directors have done stuff that I think is better than this movie. But considering this is a Marvel film and it's easy to cheat a lot of things with CGI and their budget, I'm glad that a lot of it is grounded, and the actors like Simu Liu, who portrays our titular character. He put in a lot of work to make sure he was able to perform these fights because he is not a masked character. He's not a masked superhero. Yeah. So anytime they're going to hide him, they need to use digital trickery or they need to film him from above. And thankfully, for the most part, he's doing a lot of the fights himself.
Absolutely. However, we forget that we live in the age of Disney owning or just having so much money and owning so much technology that they can literally digitally impose anyone's face on a stunt person.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I mean, according to the production trivia out there, Simu Liu really did do a lot of his own work when he wasn't back home filming Kim's Convenience. But no, I actually saw some of the test footage that he was in. I actually liked everything from the test footage more than any of the fights in this movie because it's far more grounded, and that's not to say negative about the movie. It's just like I just generally like more grounded camera work and just grounded everything, honestly, because the more bombastic and more shit is just flying on the screen, the more I believe that everything's just in a computer somewhere.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
completely understand it. I have similar sentiments as well. I think though that if every Marvel movie is gonna have CGI, like you
Yeah.
can't. It's
Of
so
course.
you can't go into it expecting everything to be done in camera because it's just not possible.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
for certain sequences like the bus fight, which is one that's just heavily advertised in the commercials and whatnot, they built a big bus. That's real. It's just the background that is digital. And then some of the things where he's like on top of the bus and whatnot, those are obviously fake. Keep going. I forgot what I was going to
Sure,
say.
no, that's fine. Going with what you're saying, with the idea that some set pieces they need to be digital, right? Of course,
Yes.
like bus exploding and being cut in half and people diving through it, and like, okay, that makes sense. You could do that practically, be incredibly dangerous. But then there's other sets where I feel like I don't know. Some of this could have been a little bit more on the practical side, right? So when they're on the side of a building, there's scaffolding everywhere. This is in Macau. Some of the movement, a lot of the movement looks like the actual performers are just doing it. And sometimes the actors, performers, are swinging and sliding around, and that all of it looks like digital. Like those movements are too fast. I'm like, that could have been a real person. That should have been a real person, because as soon as it becomes digital, I'm like, it takes me out of the action. And like I was saying, like it's always more impressive when you can see an actual performer doing the stunts versus just a whole bunch of things in a computer being rendered out for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on. I have one thing to rebut my own point, but go on.
Right. Oh, so I remembered what I was going to say now. So I got to see this in the theaters, and unfortunately, everyone saw it in the theaters, but I got free screening, but unfortunately, I had to sit very close to the screen, and oh boy, my peripherals were filled with imagery. I adjusted, thankfully, because that could have been like a headache-inducing nightmare. But one of the things I guess that I noticed from sitting too close is I could very clearly see when anything was digital, because when you look up close, if you have an eye for it, you can tell when pixels do not look correct.
Right.
I could tell when they were not using face swap and there was actually stunt doubles, because you can see, oh, that's not the actor, that's somebody else. So that was something interesting from my perspective, even though it was a hindrance at first, because I was just sitting there like, oh my god, this is too much.
You're like, am I getting tunnel vision, or is Aquafina not real? It turns out she's not even a person in the movie. Speaking of stunt doubles, one of the performers in the Marshall Club is the stunt person for, just one of the stunt people in general. I think he's the one behind the mask, right?
Yeah, he is. I guess on IMDb, he's called the Death Dealer. He's he's a blue ninja. He has the Peking Opera face mask.
Yep.
And he actually gets his own fight with Simo
I would
Liu.
say that's probably my favorite fight from the movie. It's it's a little short, isn't it? If I'm
It's very short, but in terms of just fighting, two people fighting, going at it, longer bouts of choreography, not as much editing. Yeah, that's probably the best one. I would say so as well.
If you were coming from a standpoint like the way that we would analyze a movie and a fight scene and want something like that, that's actually the closest fight we can get to something like that. And outside of that, I feel like majority of the film is kind of like a CG. I was gonna say mess, and I don't know how to take one step back from that. But yeah, there's a lot of CG in the movies, and that's what I was gonna say. To rebut my own point from earlier, I mean, one, CG is just indicative of these Marvel movies now. Like it's just part of their style, the way that these movies are made. Call them formulaic if you want, but that's just kind of how it is. But also, they're filming during COVID. I can actually give it a little bit more of a pass because of that, because like they're working with a lot of constraints already. And in order to fill out the screen, in order to fill out for time, like they just just do everything in computer. So I get it. I kind of prefer it if it wasn't that case. Because if it's marketed as a martial arts movie, I'm like, I kind of just want to see the martial arts. Like, and that leads me to my next point, which is it's not so much the CG, which I can kind of get by. It's the camera work. It's the digital camera work I'm not a fan of. Most of the camera work is not an actual camera. It's all the camera work is done in post. I'm imagining a lot of these things are happening on screen. Sometimes are not even really there. It's just someone on a blue screen and they're just rotating him in a 3D environment. So the camera moves a little too fluidly to the point where it's like the camera is the action versus the character movement, which should be the focus of the action. Do you follow what I'm saying? Like I feel like that sometimes the camera will be moving. You're too focused on the camera movement.
Right. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking of that bamboo scaffolding fight that's happening outside of the building, where you get a lot of smooth camera work, and it's a little hard to tell because that is a night scene, so you can hide some of the CG a little easier with that. Yeah. But you'll notice with some of those shots, like you get swooping camera movement, and when things look too smooth, my mind automatically thinks, "Oh, that's digital."
Oh yeah.
But we have really sophisticated cranes and rigs now where you can have a camera doing really smooth stuff. Right. So your mind is fighting to figure out what's real when you're getting distracted from that instead of looking at what's on screen.
Right. Well, that's the whole Marvel thing. It's clean. Marvel action movies are very clean, and I actually kind of don't like that. I like the grittiness. I like that. It's everything you just said. And again, that's what I mean when I say Marvel movies or superhero movies in general. They just feel like they're throwing out a template. And that whole conspiracy theory they say there is Disney will hire an indie director, which is basically the case with this movie. They just hire him, like blow him up to a higher status to film something like this. And when it comes to the action, they're like, "Don't worry about the action. We got that," and they're just like churn it out of a machine. And that's how it feels. I'm sure because the director of this movie, what is his name?
Destin Cretton.
Destin Cretton. Yeah, I know he's a big martial arts fan, so like that's not to discredit him at all. I'm sure he had a lot of control, or I hope he had a lot of control behind all these things. But it just feels like the final product is just like Disney meddling. Like, no, you got to make it super clean, like the other movies.
Well, I think maybe something you're not taking into account is, I'm sure if other action movie directors were given even more money in their budget, they might smooth out some of their fights and action scenes as well. True. To a point where it might look like a Marvel movie. But we don't, but we don't know. That's all speculation.
That is all speculation. I'm not trying to be hearsay, but that's just the final product just feels like that kind of result that I didn't really want.
But well, one thing to point out too is the second unit director and stunt coordinator of this film is the late Brad Allen, famously known for working on the Jackie Chan stunt team. And when you look at some of the movies he's worked on in his Hollywood career, his stuff usually looks pretty polished too. So, that could just be him being a perfectionist and wanting it to be smooth and not rough around the edges.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure they brought it in to get some sort of that Jackie Chan-esque style of comedy, like comedy fighting, which we do get semblances of throughout the film. I don't know. I mean, again, this is the late Brad Allen. Rest in peace. I think this is a pretty good send-off for him. And in terms of the actual choreography, it's not so much the choreography itself that I have a problem with. It just I think it's everything around that. Because when you see the behind the scenes, some of which I've watched, it's actually really impressive. I was watching Michelle Yeoh training behind the scene. I don't know if that's a spoiler. Michelle Yeoh's in the movie. I just
Oh no, she's in the advertisement, so that's
oh,
not
okay.
a spoiler.
All right, that's not a spoiler. I don't watch trailers, so when she's performing and everything, I was like, wow, it looks great behind the scenes. But then, post things obviously change. But that's not surprising at all. Everyone has to go through their own round of rehearsal and everything.
Yeah, and she is also an older actress, even though I'm sure she's fully capable. Maybe for some of the more difficult things, and actually I can kind of confirm because I could clearly see that she had the face digital swap in her fight with Samu later on in the movie.
Right. Well, let's talk about some of the. We obviously talked extensively about the action. I want to talk about like some themes, maybe. You talked about the family.
You maybe want to get into the story a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, let's not keep this all that long, and also let's not go into spoiler territory. Just really briefly, Zero, you're a Marvel fan, right? You tell the story.
Oh God, fuck. What's this movie about? This movie is about
Shang-Chi. Done.
Shang-Chi. He has a jade necklace that people try to steal from him. And oh man, I'm like, I can't even think of the story.
Let's talk about it in broad strokes. Tony Leung is his father.
Yes.
Tony Leung is the best part of the movie, in my opinion. His performance is really good. I didn't know he could speak so much English because every movie I've ever seen him in, he's always speaking Cantonese. And this movie, he's speaking neither. Oh, and that's one thing I want to talk about before I continue with the story is that in terms of Asian representation, I'm very happy that they chose Chinese. They actually speak Chinese primarily throughout the movie. There's too many movies out there where it's like, meanwhile, ancient China and everyone's speaking English. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I'm looking at you, my man in the Iron Fist.
Right. Yes, they are speaking Mandarin, I believe, throughout much of the movie. And I think a lot of people were taken aback when the opening narration is subtitled because the narrator is speaking in Mandarin.
Yeah. Right. Well, I'm glad they did that. But anyways, so Tony Leung is... he brings back home his two estranged kids. One of them, Simu Liu, who is Shang-Chi, the main character. Shang-Chi brings along his sidekick, I guess, Aquafina. And they are trying to find a way to bring back their mother, and then everything after that. I mean, it's not exactly that story, but it's kind of similar to that.
Right.
And then the rest is like you dive into the movie a little bit.
Yeah,
deeper.
you kind of just told the whole story
Without spoiling.
in like without spoiling it, but in a very, very simple way. Yes, you're correct. Yeah. Tony Leung, he has these 10 magical rings that wield him extraordinary power, pretty much superpowers. He is kind of immortal, I think. And what ends up happening is his wife and their mother dies because of circumstances that we find out during the movie. And he believes that his wife is actually still alive. She's hidden somewhere. And the jade necklace that the wife gave to Shang-Chi and the sister, Liang, contains I guess kind of like a map to how they can go find the mother.
Right. I think we should stop there.
That's fine. We don't have to go too deep into the specifics. But like I said, I think what makes this movie work for me is that I like the character stuff and I like the family drama before all the superhero shenanigans and before the ridiculous amount of CGI that kind of gets shoved in at the very end. When the characters, ultimately have to fight at the end, it's no surprise Shang-Chi needs to fight his dad, who is portrayed as the villain the whole time. It is satisfying, at least for me, because I understand the wedge that happened between them and all these things that are going on. And he doesn't want to see his father as this bad person, despite the fact he kind of is. But there's that internal struggle. Like, does he have to kill his father? Like, what does he have to do in this situation?
Yeah. No, the story stuff or the character drama between the character relations between the characters are definitely the driving point behind the movie. I felt the length of the film. Did you? I really did feel the over 2 hour mark, 2 hour and 12-minute mark. So I think it definitely could have been cut down. Yeah.
So I was gonna say, I was very surprised because the movie had me for a long time where I didn't feel the length. The pacing was really, really good. And there's a point where they finally go to meet, Tony Leung's character. They all meet up. They all kind of come together. And we meet a character in jail. And he starts talking with this magical CGI monster. And the movie grinds to a halt. Like everything just... I was like, oh my God.
Yep.
Where are we now?
That
is when I started feeling the length. Everything before that, I was like, okay, where are we going? And then from there, that character ties into like another Marvel movie, so I get it. But once he came in, I was like, oh no, how much more movie is there?
Oh, that's a Marvel trope. You need to tie it in with this whole universe, and there needs to be references here and there. Some of which I can kind of just breezes by. Other times I'm like, oh, that's kind of wish this wasn't in the movie at all. But whatever, that's a minor complaint of mine. I mean, these are Marvel movies. Of course they're going to happen. Speaking of things that grind to a halt, I mean, the movie is consistently a martial arts film. Has martial arts fighting in it. They're not amazing. They're pretty good. They're substandard to standard level martial arts, Marvel action fights. But then there comes to a point where literally martial arts stops happening, and it just becomes this flat-out action movie, like a Marvel action movie.
Right.
I don't want to say what it is.
It kind of has to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember the end of Black Panther, where it became just a CGI fight between warring clans and CGI monsters, like...
Yep.
Where that movie was really interesting because of the politics and the family drama and all that stuff going on. But then you have to shove in CGI rhinos with battle armor. That's kind of where this movie lies too. It's a Marvel movie. It's a superhero movie. You can't go away from that, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's there. So just be prepared for the big CGI spectacle at the end.
Yeah. I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but hey, whatever. It's all good. I mean, that comes with the territory. I kind of checked out as soon as it happened. Like, all right, it stopped being a martial arts movie. It's a CGI mess times 100. It's just a whole bunch of monsters fighting on screen. But that's fine. I think that there are some highlights in the movie. Obviously, we don't have it on in front of us, so we don't remember all of them. But I think that some of the fights are pretty good. The character stuff between Tony Liang and Simu Liu are pretty good. Tony Leung is just great in the film. I love his performance. And that's basically it. Like, I don't have much else to say about it from a very broad strokes standpoint. Zero, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I liked it. I'm kind of getting a little fatigued when it comes to martial arts movies, but
martial arts or Marvel?
Marvel
Jesus,
movies,
are we stopping the podcast?
Yes, excuse me. I'm getting a little fatigued with Marvel movies and the superhero movies, but I thought this was in the right direction for reinvigorating the franchise because, man, like this did extremely well over the weekend. I was thinking that when I went to the movies, it was all Asian people in the theater, nothing but Asian people.
Of course.
And I was cynically thinking, did all the Asians in America just band together to go and see this to boost up the box office? This maybe not even wanting to, just like, no, we got to support each other. We gotta get this movie up there to number one.
Probably. I mean, I'm the closest to a negative review for this. I don't even dislike it. I thought it's just okay, and I can raise hell. I'm gonna get so much backlash from the the Asian community in general.
That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I'll add some fire to that. I'm not the biggest Tony Liang fan. I
Really?
thought he was.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen many of his movies, so there you go.
Okay.
I thought he was just fine. Yeah.
See, now I'm gonna have you're gonna get backlash from me.
Yeah. I liked him in his Wong Kar-wai movies. But,
There you go. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but for this, it could have been anybody else. I thought he was good though. His English was very, very awesome. I was just surprised because I've been seeing some other. Oh, I'm thinking of other movies where we had. I'm thinking of Forbidden Kingdom, where Jackie Chan had to give a long bout of exposition, and we were just like, "Oh man, like he is not the right person for this."
He was fine. He was fine here.
Yeah, Tony Leung gives a huge bout of exposition. He gives an exposition drop like 2/3 into the movie, and surprisingly, I was still fine with it. I was like, okay, good. I was like, good. I understand everything you're saying. The movie's still going along, so perfectly happy with it.
Okay. So yeah, that's our general review. We don't want to go any further into it because we don't want to spoil it for you. Go check it out. I don't love it, but you should still go check it out. That's my recommendation.